Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tracy Guilford. This is the Town of Groveland Cable TV Advisory Board meeting of April 9th, 2019. As I said, my name is Tracy Guilford, chairperson of the board. Other members of the board are,
Rob Carbone.
Beth Rose.
Carl Judson.
Ed Watson.
and also here is,
Chris LaCory.
first, wanted to let people know, as part of our current and future meetings, we will be incorporating a public comment period. So if anyone from the town wishes to address the board at our meetings, they are welcome to do so. We are in the process of renegotiating our cable contract with our vendor Comcast. We're in the process of developing a survey that'll go out to people to get their input on what they want to see happen as far as the contract is concerned. So we'll want input from everyone on that. Item 2 on the agenda is approval of minutes. At that meeting was Tracy Guilford, Robert Carbone, Carl Judson, and Chris. Members who were absent from that meeting were Ed and Elizabeth had not been appointed at that point. So we need myself, Rob, and Carl to approve those minutes. So Rob and Carl, do you see any issues with those minutes?
Nope.
Having said so, does someone have a motion to approve?
I move to approve of the Monday, January 28th, 2019 Cable Advisory Board minutes.
Second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Abstain.
abstain?
Yeah.
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. We will be meeting at 7 o'clock with Bill Hewig, our town council. He will be our attorney to represent the town in our negotiations with Comcast. So while we're waiting for him to come, we'll be getting through some old business. Chris, could we have an update on when the bulletin boards will be replaced and the survey replaced?
Sure. So we had that scheduled for the week of April 22nd, but I found out that candidates night is the same week on Wednesday, so I'm going to have HB push that hopefully to early or mid-May. I don't have a date back from them because we just discovered that candidates night was going to be that week. I had told them that that would be a good week to do it, not knowing that, and so that's the status of that.
I know we were at the Board of Selectmen meeting last night, and when we asked for the candidates night, it was found to be the same night, same time period as we had planned the upgrade, so.
So, yeah, I think, it can wait. It's still up and running, It can wait another week or two or whatever. So I'll
Just want to make sure that when, a week before, they are planning on upgrading, since the bulletin board will be blank, we'll want to notify people. Channel 9 and Channel 22 will want a message that says the week of whatever, the system may be down.
yeah.
We can also make sure that we have programming playing continuously to fill in the gap, so it's not just a blank channel.
Well, when we're down, we're not going to be able to be
Oh, we
playing.
can't do anything?
Right.
Okay,
But we shouldn't be down the whole week. We should probably only be down a day or two, but, I don't know when schedule-wise. I didn't want that to be the day before candidates night,
right.
so.
Rob?
Before decommissioning the current equipment, is there any way you could keep that running and have them build the equipment parallel to the actual rack of equipment and then just do a clean swap?
I haven't asked them that, but I can ask them that.
You should definitely ask them that,
Okay.
because in all my years of doing this, I've never been down for 2 days. The
Okay.
longest I probably let myself be down for is like 4 hours for testing purposes.
Okay, ask him
It's
if
always
that's-
wiser to build, pal, if you need a rack, I could probably get you at least something to borrow for the time being. Or you
Okay.
can just rehouse it.
I think they said up to, not definitely, but, like
Right.
worst case scenario. But yeah, I'll ask if they can do that.
Okay. Could we have an update on the live streaming?
Yes, so I had asked our town's IT person to get me a list of the recommendations, stuff we need to do at the police department and over here. He had told me last week that he would have that to me by Wednesday of last week. He told me Friday and Monday that he had another project come up and couldn't get that done. I know basically an overview of what needs to be done, because I talked to him for about an hour last week, but I don't have a quote from him. I had hoped to have that in front of you guys, but I never got it.
Okay.
So, basically, we need to upgrade the bandwidth in Town Hall. Town Hall is asking for that, Denise is asking for that. It makes sense for us to do that, because it's gonna make our stuff work better in here. The IT person, suggested a firewall in the police station, because currently we don't have anything. So I'd like to implement that per his specs. He's gonna add a couple, Ethernet drops in this room, I think 4. Let me just double check, make sure I'm not overlooking anything. Where did I put that other paper? We're upping the speed, we're adding Ethernet ports, and I need, we're upgrading the static IP blocks. We need more static IPs in both the police station and this room to configure around the Earth Channel piece of equipment. So Earth Channel has it ready to go, but they need to configure the IPs, and I need our IT person to do that. So we're waiting on that, and hopefully we can, get that approved once I have something from him. So that's what we're waiting on.
And,
Sure.
oh, go ahead.
I'm curious, the town IT guy, is he a contracted person, or is he actual, like, staff?
He's not staff, no.
He's a contracted person?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Has anyone contacted Comcast, through government relations to see about getting the internet speed upgraded versus actually trying to pay for more, since they should actually be providing something that's more industry standard now?
I haven't reached out, whoever replaced Jane.
Okay.
But I mean, he did interface with Comcast directly when he asked them for what speed we should go to and all that.
Right. I just don't want them selling you something you don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
That's not gonna, why? These are why we have our little checks and balances here.
Okay. Then maybe we should put that off and have that as part of our renegotiation package.
Yeah, we might even be able to get something a little bit more robust, so we don't have to. He has the static IPs just for point-to-point for this streaming channel?
Right, we need those. I was under the impression that the town needed some of them, so we were going to give the town a couple of the extra ones that we'll have no need for. We need to go from a block of 5, which I think we currently have, to 13. And so the town wanted 1 or 2 of those, I believe. Again, I don't have anything in front of me
No,
from
I
him.
know, I'm just
so-
trying to make
Yeah.
some sense of it. It seems like a lot where you could probably get away with doing some VPNs for these, where you wouldn't need as many static IPs. You could actually just make your own little, small private networks that will only work for just police, or just for town hall, or just for streaming, and the 3 won't touch you. I mean, that's what we do in North Reading, and that's what I've done in other.
If you can help me set that up, I'd be happy to do that. I
see
just
what I
have
can
no ability to do IT
Yep,
stuff, so.
Can I make a suggestion to the board then, that we'll put the live streaming on pause for now, and ask Chris and Rob, appoint them as a subcommittee to explore what we need and report back to us,
okay.
so that we're not spending money that we don't necessarily have to spend.
Okay.
Yeah, good idea for both, able to do that,
Yeah.
time-wise.
Good. There's a spot for you if you want to set your coat over on the table and your stuff. At this point, say, let's take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll reconvene.
Okay, do you want me to just finish the update on the microphones?
Yeah, an update on the microphone.
So, we had been having a bunch of problems in this room. So I had HB come in and look at some stuff. We discovered we had a bunch of equipment that failed over, the last 5 years. Some of which they didn't do right, but some was age. We had points in this room, one for the first block of 8 mics, the other was for the other 2 or 3 that we had. The second access station died, so everything linked to that just didn't work. And I have no way to check if those are really working, but they came in and told me that that had died. So we need to replace that so that our second block of microphones work. We also have one of the 2 mixers died, so they recommend, instead of replacing it with another SMC 810, they recommend upgrading those to SMC 820s because those are capable of doing an audio protocol that will help separate out the broadcast audio from the PA audio, which is another problem with how this room was done when it was done. We're trying to do 2 things at once, and we're sacrificing quality on both ends because we really should have a DSP, which is like a digital processor, to handle levels for the broadcast, keep those separate and independent from levels from the PA. Right now, we're trying to drive both, and it's causing us a lot of problems. They also installed a network switch in the rack, and one of the things that was going on was the microphones were overriding each other because there wasn't a large enough switch in there. Now, that's something HB put in that they didn't do right. So that's been fixed, and that should be a lot more functional than what was, why we would have random mics not working but it would always be different mics. So that is fixed.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can monitor, like a quality control system for this so that, I don't know, is there something that Chris or the committee or somebody can, at specific periods of time, just check to see the quality and that the equipment's working, or do we have to wait till things?
Yeah, I think we should have, the vendor come in, every 3 to 6 months, and just do a once over and make sure that everything's totally good.
Yeah, but I just want to say, I was here, when they were installing, and they said our microphone system was the very first of its kind, so they had left out something, yeah, and, they said, we were told the person who installed it is no longer working for them. I mean, that's great, but it still
Yeah, it doesn't help us, yeah.
us. Having said that, we do have our 7 o'clock appointment with Bill Hewig, so I want to pause the discussion on that because Bill has come from a long distance to talk with us. Actually, could we take a 5-minute recess, Charlie? Just pause us for 5 minutes. on both units? Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Again, this is the Groveland Cable TV Advisory Board. We're here meeting with Bill Hewig. Hewig, our town council, who will be representing us in the process. So he will be addressing the committee and giving us information that we need to know. Bill,
Thank you.
thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Nice to see a lot of you here whom I know from town meeting and other things. And I'm pleased to be representing you in this renewal. Your license expires in November the 28th, 2019. So that is perhaps 6 months away. You have time to do a renewal process and to follow the procedures set forth in the Cable Act, and I'll just go through those very briefly. I'll start with some very fundamental things. I imagine most of you know this because you've been around for a while, but I frequently get questions at the beginning of a cable renewal, such as, can we kick these people out and get a new cable operator in here? Or why can't we get the Golf Channel? Or how come rates, can't we make them lower rates? So I'll start with the basics. The two things you probably, or a lot of people probably most want to see changed, rates and programming, are off the table for the negotiations for a renewal license. That's the policy and the regulations of the FCC. Both of those things are supposed to be set by the market and not supposed to be negotiated by the license granting or the issuing authority. So the way that you can influence those, if there is, well, you can't influence rates. That's just going to be what it is. If you have a non-competitive market, and you may here in Groveland, the primary tier rates are still regulated by the state. Secondary tier, advanced tier rates are not. But there isn't anything that the select board or the cable board can do about cable rates. That's just what they are. Programming, it's not on the table for renegotiations, but the way to get programming changes, if folks in town really want to do that, is by lobbying and pressuring and writing letters and campaigning with the cable operator, including at the public hearings and some of the meetings, and letting them know that you want a particular channel or you want a different lineup, all right? It does work. It does work. So what can you get from cable renewal? And the answer is you get money, all right? You may get technical. You may be able to expect some technical advances, such as, for example, Comcast is now giving at least one channel, one PEG channel in HD. And by the time we get around to negotiating in the fall, they may be up to 2, for all we know. A year ago, they weren't giving any PEG channels in HD. Now they're giving one PEG channel in HD. Do you have 3 channels?
We have 2.
2? So it's like probably a P and an E and G? Yeah.
And a general.
Okay. So you'll get one of those 2. You can expect to get one of those 2 in HD if you want it. And most folks, most towns, most excuse me, most communities want HD in one of their PEG channels. So basically you can get money, and you can get technical advances. You can get things like senior citizen discounts and sort of administrative types of things. But the big one is money. Now, I know you get 3.75% of your gross annual revenues, of Comcast gross annual revenues every year. How much does that represent? Can you give me a ballpark?
I'm not sure.
How much that?
The actual numbers, because just to let you know, our board has just been reconvening within the last couple of months.
Okay.
We had a death on the board, and then a couple of people had left. So for a number of months, we were not able to function because Ed and I were the only ones on the board.
Okay.
So we finally got 3 new people, or
Okay.
I should say 2 new people and 1 person we were able to get to re-up.
Yeah, don't say an old one, just a
Yeah.
renewal.
So we're able to, again, work
Okay.
on behalf of the town.
Okay. So there is a sum of money you get every year, and it represents 3.75%. Do you know how many subscribers you've got, Tracy?
No,
Okay.
I think it's about 80 grand a year. I could be wrong because I've never seen it, but I think
Yeah.
that's about what we
I'll
get.
Check with Denise and
Yeah.
forward that to you.
So you probably have about 2,000, 2,500 subscribers, maybe, 1,800?
That I have no
Okay.
info on.
Probably a safe ballpark.
Yeah.
Probably a safe ballpark figure. is what
Yeah,
I think, right?
the population's about 7,000, right? 75,
65.
65,
65, okay.
maybe a shade less.
So 80,000 sounds about right. It sounds like what you would expect for a community this size. And you also got $100,000 in what were called capital grants, and still are called capital grants, spread out in 3 separate payments somewhere during the course of the 10-year license. So that's that's where you are now. And you can expect to get more if you need more and you want more and you can make the showing. And you will be able to, I'll help you. I'll help show you how to make the showing to get more money if you want it. That's our job. Your job as a cable board, my job as your attorney and your representative, to enable you and help you be able to get whatever it is you want out of the renewal license. So,
Quick question for you, Bill, though. A number of us are aware that there's been a push for the FCC with Comcast and Verizon to eliminate PEG access. Are you aware of that, and do you know of how that seems to be stacking up?
I certainly am aware of it. I send an email to the FCC every week and ask them when it's coming down, and the answer is always, we have no idea. I've talked to other folks who seem to be in the know, people in the access industry, and some of them say they don't expect a decision for a long time, maybe not into the fall. I certainly am aware of what the FCC is trying to do, and to simplify it, one of the things that the FCC would do would be, in your current license, you get $80,000 from what we would call the annual operating grant. That's your annual budget, your year-to-year expenses. And then you get capital grants for maybe long-term capital renewal projects like buying new equipment, cameras, or maybe improving a studio. One of the things the FCC proposed order would do would be to say, okay, Comcast, you can take that $100,000 in capital and you can credit that back against the 5% or the 3.75%. In your case, you're netted out to zero. You've got 80,000 coming in, and they're going to allow the cable operator to credit $100,000 back. You owe them $20,000. I mean, you wouldn't. You'd net out at zero. That's one of the things, but only one of the things they would permit. Another thing that the FCC would propose is that as part of the so-called license fee, that is, the license fee is a term of art, or the franchise fee, I should say, is a term of art for the obligations, the financial obligations imposed upon the cable company by the license. In your case, it's 3.75%, $100,000. But there are other things that your license requires. That your license requires them to give you 2 channels for purposes of PEG, and to connect the equipment and to handle the upstream and convert that into downstream signals and send it downstream. So those are all costs that the cable company has. Right now, they can pass those costs through to the subscribers, and they're relatively minimal when you spread them out over, let's see, what do we say, 1,800, 2,000 subscribers over the course of a year? It might be like 5 or 10 cents or something like that. But one of the things per subscriber per month, of course. But one of the things the FCC is saying is, okay, our definition of franchise fee is going to change. You can count whatever it costs you to provide 2 PEG channels and all the equipment and all the servicing and all the maintenance and all that. You can count that as part of the license fee. So if that comes out, and it's all capped at 5%, by the way. So if you've got a 5% cap and you're getting $80,000 a year, and all those additional services and equipment that the cable operator is providing total $40,000, all right, you can see that's going to whittle down the money you get as well. So yeah, the FCC, if the FCC gets its way, read into that, if the cable companies get their way, because they're behind it, of course, PEG access, public access, governmental access across the country, and particularly here in the Northeast, and particularly in Massachusetts, will be gutted. So are we worried about it? Yes. Is there going to be anything happen soon? I don't think so. I don't think so for a number of reasons. One of them is it's so drastic that I think one of the reasons the FCC hasn't issued the order yet is they realize it's going to be devastating to all kinds of local access productions all over the country. And, maybe they're having second thoughts about that. The second thing is that there was a public comment period, which you always get when a federal agency issues new regulations. There's a period of time in which the public is permitted to make comments, and then that's closed out, and following that, the agency can issue its order whenever it wants. That happened last fall with the FCC proposed orders. And the comment period, I think, closed at the end of November, maybe it was 15 December, somewhere around that period of time. And I saw a lot of the things that were made as public comments. I wrote a couple letters myself for a couple municipalities like the city of Cambridge. But Mass Access, which is like a trade group that I'm sure you're familiar with, they are the Access, it's a nonprofit that advocates on behalf of local access in Massachusetts, hired a law firm in Pennsylvania to prepare the public comment. And the law firm basically prepared a legal brief with all of the legal reasons why the FCC will fail with this if they try to order it and it goes into court. And some of them were statutory. They violated or exceeded the powers granted to them by the statute, by the FCC, by Congress to FCC. Some of them were even unconstitutional. Others were just, things like you're trying to change a definition in a statute and you're the FCC, you're not Congress. Only Congress can change a definition in a statute. I mean, there were lots and lots of legally sound and persuasive reasons why this order was just out of control. So my suspicion is, and it's shared by most people in the industry, my suspicion is that if the FCC does undertake to issue this order, there will be lawsuits filed in federal courts all over the country, including here, probably by Mass Access. And somebody somewhere, some judge somewhere is going to issue a temporary restraining order or issue an injunction to stop this order from going forward. It's going to be tied up in the courts for a long time, and probably some sort of compromise or settlement negotiation that is a lot less restrictive will end up being negotiated, and that's probably going to be several years away, or even longer than that. So we're all aware of what the FCC is trying to do. We are concerned about it, but it doesn't seem to be on the immediate horizon. That's the consensus of most folks. So what does that mean for our cable negotiations?
You don't have to go quite
Oh,
as close. I think
too
I'm
loud?
getting
Sorry.
feedback. That's okay.
What does that mean for our cable negotiations? We have a license coming up in November. Do we anticipate that? Do we try to write things into the license that will prevent that? I've tried that. The cable companies won't allow it, If the FCC orders something, we're still going to pay you 5% as it's 5% constituted now and not after the FCC order. They won't buy that. My basic advice is, look, let us negotiate the best possible license we can under the current rules, and what comes will come. And let's hope and trust that if it does ever come, it won't be anywhere near as severe as people think, and let's hope and trust that the access lobby, and there is an access lobby in this country, will be able to persuade the FCC and/or Congress that if you really want to change the rules, don't have a heavy impact on access right away. Provide for substitute funding, like maybe allowing broadband sales also to be included within some of the funding sources, not just cable sales, and to stretch it out over a long period of time so the impact will not be so difficult and serious. So my advice is, let's just pretend it's not even there. Let's just negotiate the best license we can. We can't anticipate it anyway. There's really nothing more we can do.
Makes sense.
Another question for you. I know a few years ago, the state had explored the idea that they were going to eliminate towns and cities from negotiating their own, and the state was going to negotiate. Is that basically been put to bed?
Yes. That's not going to happen, not in Massachusetts. No.
All right.
It's a good thing, because the Cable Act was designed to allow local communities to kind of figure out what they wanted and needed from cable TV and to fashion and craft their own programming. And the best way to do that is if we have licenses in Massachusetts that are issued by municipalities, which is what we've got, those municipalities get to negotiate their renewal licenses, and they get to figure out what they want. And, you know, they have a voice, and what we want here might be completely different than what they want next door in Georgetown, you know, and that's the way it is.
I
So-
know here it's been vital, because at one point, our town used to be covered by 3 daily newspapers and 2 weekly/bi-weekly, depending on how they were run. And when you had a controversial subject that was coming up, that, you know, whether for town meeting or a special town meeting, you know, if you weren't able to go to the hearings, sometimes I would buy all the papers. And sometimes when I was there at the meeting, you know, I'd buy all the papers, and I'd say to some of the correspondents, it's like, hey, I was at that meeting, you wrote this, this, and this, but you left out this. And they said, well, my editor only gave me an 8-inch column instead of the 12-inch I needed, and something was edited out. And it's like, I look at public access television as vital, because like in our town, we do primarily government meetings, nothing is edited, so everyone who watches this on either television or YouTube, and eventually we're gonna go to live streaming, will have the same information. So if they go into a vote and vote different than me, at least they had the same information that I had to base that vote on. So I can respect that. But, you know, as they say in the old days, when it was news and they didn't get the full information from that meeting or hearing, then I had issue with that.
I hear that in every town. There used to be 4 newspapers here, now there's 1 or maybe none. So what is the process we're embarked upon, or we will shortly be embarked upon, perhaps we already are? It's called ascertainment, and that's a fancy word meaning figure out what you want and then ask for it. I sometimes hear cable boards or cable committees say, well, I'll tell you what, let's let Comcast make the first offer, and then we'll figure out if we like it, and if we don't like it, we'll reject it and make them come back with something higher. That's not the way the statutory scheme is set up. They won't make an offer. It's up to us to tell them what we want. The ball's in our court. We have to fire the first shot across the bow, so to speak. So our task over the next 6 months is to, in very brief terms, figure out what the town of Groveland wants and needs for its cable, to support its cable programming, its public and governmental programs, right, P&G, right? No E?
Well, that's
P
one thing
slant.
we'll want to explore with you.
Yeah.
We have a regional school system, Pentucket, which comprises Groveland, Merrimack, and West Newbury. They're in the process of building or proposing to build a new high school. The high school is located in West Newbury, so whether or not we should be exploring, you know, whether or not the 2 other communities want to see an educational channel, and whether an educational channel would be run out of the high school, I am not sure.
Okay. So anyway, the task we have is to figure out what Groveland wants for its future community cable-related needs, and then put together what I call a business plan. You could call it a proposal, you can call it whatever you want. I sent some sample business plans to you, and I think you'll find that they are for slightly larger markets than Groveland, like Watertown probably. I think maybe sent you Plymouth, 50,000 people or something. So, but the point is to show you what they look like. The business plan does not have to be as big and fancy and glossy and shiny as those larger communities. It has a couple essential elements to it. One is a sample annual budget for what you want your future community cable needs and productions in the town of Groveland to look like. So for example, if you have an $80,000 budget now, I'm just pulling these numbers out of the air, for your 2 channels, and you decide, let's see if we can get a third channel, or let's see if we can hire a part-time assistant access director, or let's expand and do some more programming, you know, we're not, our two channels aren't covered by live programming 8 hours a day. Let's make a goal to expand that into live coverage 8 hours a day if we can. So there will be costs attendant to that. And so part of your task is determine, A, if that's what we want, if that's a thing we want, how do you translate that into money? How much will that cost? So that goes into a business plan. So you would be looking at two financial, separate financial parts of the business plan. One's your annual budget, and the second is your capital, your future capital needs, all right? And it's really very simple to put together. You've got I'm sure you've got a budget now, an annual budget for your cable production.
To tell
and-
you the truth, we do not, at one point, years ago, we ran, Groveland and Georgetown shared a single channel. Georgetown would get approximately a little over 6,000 a year, Groveland would be 5,000 and change, and we had a public access corporation that ran it. Then Groveland was first to renegotiate a new contract, and the Board of Selectmen at the time said to the public access, well, is Georgetown going to match our amount since it's going to be higher? And it's like, well, no, they've got 2 years before they are going to renegotiate. And the selectmen at the time said, well, if they're not going to match it, we're not going to fund you, period. So they defunded the Public Access Corporation, and we ran as long as we could on the money we had, and then basically closed shop. And Georgetown went their separate way, Groveland went their separate way. So basically, we do not run on a budget currently. We have 2 part-time employees, Chris and Charlie over there. And basically, it was set up that they would basically run it, and they did their own thing.
Okay.
And then it was decided by the Board of Selectmen should have a little more oversight. So the Cable TV Advisory Board was asked to provide oversight. And now that we have, you know, like I told you, we didn't have a quorum for a number of months. So now we do. So we meet to discuss things that Chris suggests to upgrade equipment or repair broken equipment. And then that's just sent to our finance
Okay.
director to pay.
So take a look at the business plans and take a look at what the budget looks like. It would be a really great financial exercise to prepare a budget and see what, you know, allocate costs. How much do you have, I assume Chris and Charlie see some kind of salary or
Yes.
stipend or something, so,
They're paid by
you know.
the hour.
All right, so maybe you want to hire a third, maybe you want to make one full-time, part-time, you know, there are options here. I will tell you that you can easily expect to go from 3.75% up to 5%. So that's never a difficult step from 3 or 4%. It's a difficult step if you're at like 1% going up to 5, because that's a big jump. So you could expect to get an approximate increase in your annual income, all other things being equal, which they won't be, but all other things being equal, you'll go from 80 to, you know, maybe 95,000 or something like that, unless a lot of subscribers are unplugging and subscribers are cutting the cord. But on the other hand, that is often offset by the fact that the cable company's raising rates every couple of years. So, you know, fewer subscribers, higher rates, sometimes you still bring in more gross annual revenues. So.
What are towns and cities that you're negotiating with now doing? Is everyone going straight for the 5%?
No,
There are no free rides, you know, whether or not you pay it out of the left pocket or the right pocket. We know that Comcast will pass through a lot of the costs.
the costs get passed through, and
One of the things some of us are concerned with, since we're going to be asked to support a new high school, if that goes through, you know, that will be a very hard thing for some people. You know, we know there are elderly and low-income people. So,
Yeah.
you know, some of us are aware of, do we really want to go from the 3.75% to the 5%? Is that a good thing to do? What do you?
Well, it's entirely, it's your decision, it's the town's decision. The process you should follow is, you're kind of you're the selectmen's representatives in this. So your function will be to come up with a plan and then report it out and recommend it to the selectmen before we start to negotiate. Make sure that they're on board with that. So, I mean, you're not a free radical agent here, you're not, you're their representatives, so you have an obligation to report back to them and let you know, and you can say, well, we've decided, and we recommend we go from 3.75 to 4.5, or recommend going to 5, and here's why, and here's what the cost implications will be, or we recommend staying where we are. That's one of your tasks, is to do that and keep the selectmen in the loop. Selectmen will, if they're on board, then that's when we sit down with Comcast, say, all right, here's what we want. But looking at the budget, take a look at the budgets in the business plans that I gave you. Budget is, it's a guideline. It doesn't have to be down to the penny. It can be reasonably anticipated expenses. And what you're looking to do is define what your annual expenses, your annual operating expenses for your access program is going to be. Will it be 80,000? Will it be 90? Will it be 70? What will it be? That's one of your tasks, to deliberate and figure that out. And then the second part, and take a look in the business plans too, there's a lot of good examples of capital. Basically it's an equipment list, all right? You have to think with, contribution by Chris and Charlie, and all of you have experience in this, what kind of equipment do we think we will need to replace over the 10 years? What's the life expectancy of certain type of equipment we have now? Is it 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Looking ahead, maybe we've got some equipment that's halfway through its life expectancy, so we want to replace it in 2 years. Maybe stuff's brand new, replace it 5 years, who knows? It's really a roll of the dice when you're looking at equipment, a pretty decent guess, a good guess out there, all right? So if you, for example, conclude you'd like another $100,000, and we tell Comcast, all right, here's our equipment list, Comcast, it adds up to $100,000, and we get it, they're not going to come back in 5 years and say, aha, you said you're going to buy an FX72 and you didn't do it. They won't do that. You'll have your $100,000, whatever technology changes occur in the next 5 years. It's understood. You're spending it on capital for purposes of promoting access. So the task that you have is to prepare an equipment list for future capital needs, determine what those might be, and figure out what you want for annual operating expenses. The tools we have to do that there really are three, and only one of them is required. It really is the only requirement, the only legal requirement that exists for something you have to do before the selectmen sign a license, and that is you have to have at some point in the process a public hearing. And it's different than your normal weekly or monthly cable meetings. There are express publication requirements. It's got to be published in a newspaper twice weekly, a paper of local circulation for 2 successive weeks. You have to send a certified copy to the cable company. There has to be a court reporter there, et cetera. We can talk about that a little bit later. Your timing here is good. A license expiration at the end of November is good. And the reason I say that is, my feeling is the best time of the year to have a public hearing for cable TV is September. Summer's over, people are back from vacation, school's starting, people are sort of in a startup mode, when it's spring and there's baseball and there's soccer and there's graduation and there's weddings and school's going on, town meetings going on, FinCom's going on, you name it, all the stuff that happens in the spring. It's not a good time to try and get people to come out to a public hearing. There's already too many meetings going on then anyway. So my suggestion is, if we're looking at just kind of very informal timelines, think about having the public hearing, the required public hearing, you'll need sometime in September. Middle September would just be perfect. That'll give you a couple months to negotiate with Comcast, and that's all you'll need. So,
Quick question for you, the letter from the state cable had indicated that everything was supposed to be done within 6 months. of the contract termination date.
Did the camera catch me rolling my eyes? If it didn't, I'll be happy to do it again.
Okay, so you're saying,
There's no requirement to do that, and nobody ever does it. I've been doing this since 1991. I've never once done it for hundreds of licenses. There's no legal requirement. I don't know where that comes from. Don't worry about it. The obligation is get it done by November 29, all right? Listen, we actually tried to negotiate early with Comcast once. We said, let's sit down early, and they said, no, call us in a year. So being done 6 months beforehand, I suppose that's wise and prudent advice if you assume people are not used to the process, and that'll give them time, to think things through and have some extra elbow room if you're running short of time or something like that. But we're not going to need to do that, and there's no requirement, regulatory, statutory, or otherwise, that be done. So it's nice that we get these letters to remind us from the cable division, but I'm here to guide you through the process, and we'll get this done on time, and it'll be fine. So,
Bill? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, we were talking about, I'll get right back to you, Ed. We're talking about the tools you have at your disposal for helping your ascertainment, helping you figure out what you need and what the town needs. First is a public hearing. Secondly is a survey, not obligatory, not required, but a good tool if you want to do it. And the third is the business plan, also not required, but a good tool. So I can get back to those in a moment, but Ed, you had a question while it's still in your mind.
Yes. You alluded to the fact that we're at 3.75% now, and we can go to 5. Is it possible to do it over the life of the contract, raise it up, so at the end of the contract
Yes.
it would be at 5?
Yes, you could. By the way, you don't have to go to 5. You can go anywhere you want. But yes, that is done. So, for example, you might have 3.75 years 1 and 2, 4.0 years 3, 4, and 5, 4.25, 6, and 7. Gradually step it up, or do it even in larger chunk. But yes, that's possible and it's doable.
Because I'm sure that we've been at 3.75 for quite a while. I'll yield.
Oh, so no, sorry, I just tell you point at, it's pennies on the dollar. When you initially talk with the, it's this big number, but you have to figure it's 120 payments, 10 years, 12 months in each year. So, and from that 3.75 to 5% might be 25 cents, 50 cents more per bill. It's really nothing, it's negligible. You find that in the pocket of your jeans when you throw them in the wash, So I say go for the full 5. If you guys, I think this community really could use the money and use the funding to have something really nice here, so.
Well, I think that we should take a Bill's suggestion, it has some great ones there, with a list of the licensing, the life expectancy of the equipment, and what's going to be needed over the next 10 years. Obviously, probably in the 10-year contract, the equipment's going to be replaced probably maybe twice.
Very possibly.
2 or 3 times.
Very possibly.
Or more.
Yeah.
And it needs to be done, now.
Now, yeah. I was going to say, I don't know if I can jump in here, but, I don't think we should leave money on the table. I think we can easily get 5. I think we should get 5. I think, stuff we sort of assumed we were going to have left over that's been spent elsewhere on non-cable related stuff, it's important to not leave money on the table, and get the 5. And, I think we're going to need it more than we may think, so.
Well, the other thing I
that's
want to
important.
address, and I don't know if this is an issue in some communities, and this is where I do have a differing opinion with the Board of Selectmen, is twice within the last year, they have used cable funds for things that I did not deem were cable-related. They spent like $60,000 out of the cable fund for servers for town hall and the police station. That's stuff that they could have budgeted for. They spent, recently, they spent over $70,000 for closed circuit television for all the public buildings, so they can monitor them from the police station. In my opinion, that has absolutely nothing to do with cable television. But there's a loophole in the contract that allows them to do that, so.
Well, so let's remember one thing, that the selectmen are the issuing authority, and they're the municipal executive, so we have to work very closely with them, and we will. We will work closely with them. And the part of the process permits the selectmen or other areas of town, such as schools or senior centers or other public areas, public departments, to submit their needs to the town as well. So cable-related means two things. It means related to public education, governmental access, and it means related to any other cable need in the town, too. So you could have, for example, security cameras somewhere, if they're connected to the cable system or connected through an iNet, that's a perfectly legitimate expense that's got nothing to do with PEG. That's all permitted under the Cable Act, the definitions in the Federal Cable Act, and under the letter opinions of the Department of Telecommunications and Cable, it's permissible. So, so one of the things you'll want to do, or I encourage you to do, is to reach out to other parts of the community, other departments, for example, public security or schools, and see if they have future community cable-related needs that could be funded from the license. That's not to take money away from access, but you can get more money than what you're currently getting. So that's part of the process, and in doing so, you may determine, yes, there are other community cable-related needs that aren't public access, or no, there aren't. We canvass the community and it's not there. So let's get back to the tools and ascertainment. I usually like to try and give you a very, very rough idea of a timeline. And it'll be entirely up to you if you want to conduct a survey. I'll tell you why I always used to recommend surveys, but you don't really see the need that much anymore. It used to be that the first thing the cable company would say when you sat down with them to negotiate is, oh, we conducted a survey, and our survey says nobody in town wants to spend any more money on their cable bills. We ask you, do you want to spend more money on your cable bill? And 100% of the people say no. So therefore, we assume that you're not going to be asking any more money from us than what you currently get. And my answer to that is always, well, we all know that you can get the answer you want by the way you phrase the question. So what if, for example, you were to say, and you'll see this on the surveys, sample surveys I get you, we provide the following public access services to the community, A, B, C, D, and E. We would like to expand that to give you E and F over the term of the next license. If we were to do that, would you support paying more money on your cable bill per month? If the answer is yes, how much? 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents, $1, $1.25, $20.50. You'll see that in some of the surveys. Now, you're still going to get a lot of people who say no. But the point is, you're also going to get people who say yes. And that's what I say to the cable company when they come up with this. We took a survey, nobody wants to spend any more money. I just say, well, take a look at our surveys. Our surveys say people do. And folks, that's always the end of the discussion, all right? So, I say it may not be quite as necessary anymore because I haven't, in the last few times I've sat down with Comcast, I haven't heard them try to play the, that we took the survey card. So I'm not sure whether it's necessary or not for that purpose, but for your own purposes, surveys can be very, very helpful in helping you identify a couple things, and that is what complaints are out there, whether people are complaining about signal quality, whether people are complaining about customer service, or whether they're complaining about other things that are license compliance issues. And B, the survey can help you figure out what people want. So if a lot of people want a new E-channel out of the high school, that provides you some guidance as to what future community cable-related needs in the town of Groveland are. If a lot of people say they really want that, that's helpful to you, because that's what the process is all about, getting input from the public, all right? Let me just make one, while we're talking about the public, one of the questions I frequently get is, well, can we go into executive session in the cable board when we start negotiating? And the answer to that is, I'm afraid not. There is absolutely no provision in the open meeting laws for cable negotiations or cable committee meetings to be conducted in executive session. Can't do it. So, but the next thing I say is don't worry about it, because first of all, Comcast is not out there watching us tonight, believe me, all right? They've got other things to do. They don't watch all these little public meetings that are in all the cable committees in all the towns and all the counties and all the Commonwealth. They don't do it. Secondly, we will very seldom be in an open meeting where we are really talking about our strategy. And if we are, and Comcast is present, we can always say, we need to deliberate. The meeting's going to stay open, but we're asking you to go down the street and get a Dunkin' Donuts and come back in about 15 minutes, and they always do. They understand that we need to be able to deliberate not in their presence, maybe still over the public and open to the public, but not in their presence. They understand that, and they always go. So open meeting is just not a problem with cable negotiations. All right, so the tools of ascertainment. The survey, you can take a look at that. One of your jobs, I suppose, if you want to consider preparing a survey, would be to prepare a survey and then figure out how to distribute it. And my advice to cable boards and cable committees that want to know how to distribute it is distribute it every possible way you can. You've got a town meeting coming up in another 3 weeks, I think. It's a little too early. You wouldn't be able to get a survey ready to pass out at town meeting, but if you have a special in the fall, or early in the fall, it probably won't be before November. So town meetings are probably out. But you can distribute your survey, first of all, online, post it on your website, and have crawl script on the community bulletin board saying, folks, don't forget your cable survey. It's available online. It's available at the clerk's office, available at the public library. It's available at the, all the different facilities you want to leave them, senior center. Just take piles of them and put them out everywhere you can. And encourage people to participate if you want to go that way. And again, I think most cable boards and cable committees that do this find that the survey is a really important and helpful tool in helping in their job of figuring out what the community wants. So it's something that I recommend you think about, not required, all right? You'll have to get to work on it pretty quick, because 6 months isn't a lot of time, and it usually takes 2 or 3 months to write one up, and then you figure out how to get it done, how to get it distributed, and then you have to figure out how to assimilate all the results, and you can use SurveyMonkey, or you can just have good old-fashioned committee work where everybody's sitting down, checking off boxes and counting it up. So that's the first thing. The business plan we've talked about. I recommend for the town of Groveland, it could just be an introductory letter about what you do. That is what PEG Access does and what and how the funds also are spent in the town. Remember, what we're really doing with the cable company is we're really engaging in a sales project, okay? Cable companies over the years, I've found, well, they don't like to pay any penny that they don't have to. They know they have to pay for public access. It's in the law. So I have found that they are a lot less unwilling to pay for public access when they know the money is going to be well and properly spent, all right? If you've got a good access program going, and if the cable company can look at it and say, all right, this is a partnership. People watch this stuff, and that means they want cable. So this helps us generate new customers. It helps us keep current customers. If you've got a viable and good cable, public access, public education, governmental access program going, it really helps get that money from the cable company. If they know your money is going to be properly spent, it's usually not much of a problem getting more out of them, all right? So that's what we're doing. We're engaging in a sales enterprise here. We're going to make a preparation. We're going to have a dog and pony show for our public access, public hearing sometime in the fall. Cable company's going to be here. Members of the public will be here. We'll make a presentation about all the great stuff that we do and all the great stuff we want to do and can do if only you'll give us the money we need. And then we sit down with them and we make our presentation. I tell cable boards to think of it as though you're a small business and you're going into the bank for a small business loan, all right? What is that bank going to want to see? They're going to want to see that you'll be able to make money and pay them back, all right? They want return on their investment. You won't get the loan if they think you're not going to survive. And it's the same thing with the cable company. We'll get our money if we can persuade them that we've got a viable, ongoing program supported by the public, and we're going to survive. And that's our task. That's the point of ascertainment, that's the point of the public hearing, that's the point of these surveys and the point of the business plan. We're making a sales pitch to the cable company, all right? We want more of your money. That means you get less profits, but we're both going to benefit if we do it. And here's how and here's why. So that's ascertainment in a nutshell. That's your job, your task, your assignment over the next 6 months. There will be no tests. There'll be no term papers. But that's the task. Now, there's one other aspect of the renewal process I haven't talked about. And it's an important part, but in recent years, we haven't seen much of it. And that is, the cable company has got to be in compliance with its current license. And if you find that they are out of compliance with its current license, then you've got them over a barrel. And here are the ways in which cable companies usually fall out of compliance with their current license. One, the signal quality is poor. Video breakup, audio breakup, snow in the screen. Now, we don't see a lot of that anymore because of fiber optic trunk lines, no more copper wires. Fiber optic trunk lines are much, much better. It's easier for the cable company to find a problem and fix it right away with fiber optics. They don't get affected by the weather if you have a nor'easter. You know, the old copper lines used to, I don't know, get wet or something, and the cable, the fiber optics don't. So we don't see picture quality problems that much anymore, but sometimes we still do. And you don't need a technician to come in with the meters and all this and put them on the wire and say, okay, so many megabobs down, below what's required. All you need is a picture that's not very good. If you've got people complaining, I see a lot of snow. The video's poor. The audio's poor. I've got video breakup, audio breakup, intermittent, continually, whatever. If you've got folks complaining about that, and it's something to put in your survey, and it's something to invite folks to come to the hearing about, if you've got folks complaining about that, then there is probably a problem. Now, the problem may be the internal wiring of that person's house, or it may be Comcast's plant. And it's hard to figure out which it's going to be if you just have one person in isolation. But for example, what you often see is there's a section of town, there's one street, there's one road. Maybe it goes along the water, or maybe it goes along, a swamp or a marsh or something. And people on that street all report at the same time getting poor quality. That's not all those houses, that's the plant, all right? So there's two things that are important about finding that out. One, this is the best time in the world to get them to fix it fast, because you're holding the license over their head. So you will have their undivided attention. The second thing is, does your license have, I don't think it does, liquidated damages? Let me see. No liquidated damages, no. So in the license we will negotiate, there will be liquidated damages, and liquidated damages are basically fines for not complying with the license. In this case, it's just an embarrassment factor. If you had, that is, if Comcast is unable to comply with its license and it can't fix it, if it's got streets in town where the picture signal quality is really poor, the selectmen can hold a public hearing and they can shame Comcast into fixing it and give them bad publicity. And I hope you still get at least one newspaper up here. Is a Eagle Tribune still come around, so you've got at least one newspaper. And, the last thing in the world Comcast wants to see is a front page story, Groveland Board of Selectmen finds Comcast in violation of its license. That they don't like that. So you do have the power to make them comply if you find it, and so one of your tasks is to find it if it's there. Ed?
You touched upon a couple of good points. The biggest complaints that I hear from people is that the local access channel is out, and the majority of the time, it's, when it gets looked at, it's
Okay.
Comcast's fault. And sometimes it may be out for a couple of days. It's rare that people complain about the snow, but it's that when that local
Yeah.
access channel goes out, is when you get the complaint. So everybody watches that. And over the past couple of years that you've been kept abreast of it, it's, most of the time it goes out, it's Comcast's fault. It's not our equipment, it's something to do with Comcast.
Is it an old system? Are the lines that take the,
Old technology. Chris, didn't you say some communities are replacing the modulators
Yeah.
with something else?
Yeah, many communities have no modulators. I mean, we would need to run fiber from this building to our head end to get rid of the modulators. So, you know, I think that's something we should be looking at. I know it's
Whether that can be
very cost
negotiated.
prohibitive, but, you know, those things cause 99.9% of all the audio-visual problems that we've had, except for when, you know, something's frozen at the plant or something, you know, they cut the wrong line, which they've done a couple times and had us out for a couple days. But, you know,
Really?
yeah, that's happened
Well,
once or twice, at
the-
least.
this is an excellent point, because.
It hasn't happened recently, to my, you know, knowledge, but, you know, it has happened. I have,
Well, I would suggest, Chris, that you go back through all your emails and develop
Outage
like
log.
a one-page list of each of the outings,
yeah.
the date the outing was, who reported it, whether you or somebody else, who you talked at Comcast, and when the problem was rectified, and also note any of the outages that were caused by us, because we need to take responsibility for our own, the times when either myself or Charlie forgot to hit the off-air button, you know.
Last night.
yeah. Oh, no, last night I hit the off-air.
No, it was on over at the fire station, yeah.
Okay, well, I take responsibility.
But
for
we
that.
weren't off air, but the title card was up, so I had to fix that. But no big deal.
Well, an excellent point, Ed, and the thing to know about this kind of problem is, this is, as I said, this is the best possible time to raise it, because we have their undivided attention. It's a negotiable item. We can make that part of our renewal, get them to replace the old analog lines, or whatever they are, the copper lines, the coax lines, with fiber optic lines going up to the head end and back down again. I mean, a
They would,
perfect.
They would most likely be receptive to that?
Well, they may not like it, but it's a legitimate concern, and it's a negotiable item, so yes.
When I've discussed it with them, you know, they've told us, you know, that's gonna require you guys spending six figures or whatever, you know, to eliminate the modulators, you know, that's never gonna happen. If there's a way we can do that, I wanna do that.
It's negotiable,
Okay.
the negotiable
Great.
item. And.
Let's get that done.
And, you know, having the access system depend on those old coax lines is just,
We're using 30-plus-year-old technology.
Yeah.
It's as
Yeah,
old
but
as
they're
I am.
decommissioning INETs too at the same time, so Comcast is actually no longer supporting institutional networks and communities, so.
is this part of your local INET?
I think so, yeah.
Well, I mean, so there's an INET, and then the entire system gets sent upstream and back down on coax cable?
Right.
So,
I don't think
well,
we have an INET.
It's actually a passive coaxial fiber, PCF network. It's the
Yeah,
proper
that's-
terminology for it.
that's what they call it now.
Yeah, it's a hybrid, it's a mix of both technologies.
So there's really two issues. One is the INET itself, and the other is the transmission that goes back and forth to the head end. Of course, it's garbage in, garbage out, so if you've got low, you know, if you've got an INET that is cable casting over coax lines, and then you get that signal and you put it into a fiber optic, it's still not going to be a great signal. You have to have fiber optic everywhere. So,
Right.
now, I mean, somebody said they're not, Comcast is not doing INETs anymore, not managing, not paying for them. That's correct. What they will do is they'll give us a buyout number. It won't be a lot. It won't probably be particularly generous. But if they want us to take over the INET and run it ourselves, they'll have to give us some money to do that.
What would
So-
running it ourselves entail, exactly?
Owning it and purchasing your own
Get
equipment.
The whole 9 yards, and possibly even getting like an actual IT person on staff, like an actual town IT person, not a contractor. That's usually what they wind up doing.
Wasn't that discussed last night at the selectmen meeting? I saw a little bit about that, no?
I don't know, I didn't realize we had an INET here. I thought we just had the upstream, downstream.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have an iNet, to be honest. What did you say, Rob?
It's, from what I understand, when it hits the street, it's fiber back to the head end. But around here, whatever's existing is existing copper lines. Hence the passive coaxial fiber on it. I just got that in a really brief conversation with our franchise rep, so. That was in his notes. And, yeah, for a good example, because I've been dealing with this in the community I work in, and I've talked to, my peers that are also dealing with this as well, and depending on the size of the community, the actual length of fiber runs, I mean, it's gonna tally over probably $200,000, just as a ballpark figure for a town this size, and the size of what we want, especially if we want to connect the Bagnall, and if we want to try to reach out to Pentucket. I mean, it's not huge like certain communities, but other communities,
What if we just wanted to run it from this building to where the head end is, so that we can ditch the
well, the,
modulators? Is that
the
still gonna
fiber's
be-
still at the pole, so you'd still have to connect something to the police station, police and fire station, or wherever you decide to make your demarcation point.
Right. You
And that's
think-
another thing when we do this, we should probably future-proof any sort of language in our contracts.
Yeah.
So your current license, Exhibit B, has a PCF network consisting of 4 local origination points where you can live cablecast from: the town hall, the police department, the Bagnell School, and the Pentucket Regional High School. Do you live cablecast from all 4 of those sites
No.
at present?
No.
Just
For-
the police station in here.
So town hall and the police station only. Do you want to have the capability over the next 10 years to live cablecast from either of the 2 schools?
Yes,
Both?
yes, you should.
All right. So,
I've heard the argument made, I'm not against it, but I've heard the argument made that if we air, town meeting live, people won't come, and they won't get a quorum.
But what
I'm
about the
not-
disabled? You can't rule out the disabled, people that can't actually physically attend the meeting, and that's wrong.
Yeah.
You know,
I-
that
no,
could
I am
wind up
not
being an
making that
ADA
argument,
issue
I'm just
and
saying
you-
what I've heard and,
No, I know, and I get that, and I hear it, I've been at this for many years, and, that argument's always been made, but if people go, they go, if they don't go, they don't go. It's the age of cell phones where people want to issue pass, they go outside 5 minutes before the issue, call up their buddies, hey, everyone show up for 5 minutes, vote on this issue, and then leave, and that's what happens, so.
Well, let me ask Bill then, in the communities that you represent for a town meeting, are any of the communities showing their town meetings live?
yeah, a lot of them do.
Yeah, we do.
A lot of them do.
Do you know if it cuts down on attendance?
I don't know.
I know
It depends on the issue.
One, it increased, I
Yeah.
don't know why, but
It's if it's a hot topic.
see themselves on TV.
Well, no, it's if there's a hot issue. People are watching home like, oh my God, I gotta go vote for the new school. And so they all rush out to the new school, and the next, it goes from being like 50 people in the crowd to like 300 people in the crowd. And then all of a sudden, the gavel gets banged for that one, and then everyone's out like rats on a sinking ship. And then it's back to like, all right, well, let's talk about, replacing a dumpster, and there's like 3 people in the crowd, so.
You don't have a quorum.
Right.
So
Quorum to get it started.
the thing, I'm glad we're talking about this, because we're talking about some of the things that are negotiable, some of the things you can ask for, some of the things you should be deliberating and thinking about as in your task of, figuring out future community needs. You've got a PCF network or an iNet of 4 sites. You currently use 2. These are negotiable issues, so that means you can ask for more if you want them. But Comcast is going to want to get out of the business, but in order to do so, they'll give you a sum of money, and we can negotiate how much money they'll give us, apart from capital and apart from the annual, 3.75% or 5%, whatever you're going to have, a separate buyout number, all right? Sometimes it's expressed not even in the license, it's in a side letter.
letter,
And side letters are good because it's not part of the license, and they can't pass it through, all right? You didn't hear that, did you, Comcast? They know that anyway.
They're listening to you.
Yeah, so, so we're talking about here, I think Chris made said the number would be 200,000 for constructing fiber optic cables, at least from 1 or 2 sites,
Yeah,
maybe
I
here
don't
up.
have a hard number of what
Yeah.
they've said, but I've heard it's in that ballpark. I
Yeah,
don't know,
so,
Rob, if
so,
you
so
agree, but-
what you're looking at is, I mean, if it's 200,000, then we say, all right, Comcast, give us the 200,000 we need. And, we may not get the whole 200,000, may get 150 or 100, whatever it is we get can be augmented if the selectmen wish and the town wishes from the general fund. to provide for access, provide for an iNet, provide for PCF network. If you want to have live cable cast of town meetings from Pentucket, you know how you can do it, and you'll know how much it can cost. If you're only able to get 100,000 as opposed to 200, you may be limited to just 2 sites being upgraded instead of 4. In any event, it's part of the negotiations. It's a negotiable item, and it looks to me like it's going to be one of your future needs. It'll be one of the things you want to deliberate and discuss.
I don't see any possibility that, the town would spend anything out of their general fund for
Yeah,
this,
I
but
don't either, just because, I listen, because, Chris and I are usually taping the Board of Selectmen meeting, talking about budget. Budget every year is down to the pennies a lot of times, just because, of contractual obligations.
Well,
And insurance and health insurance and stuff that's beyond our control.
There's a lot of creative ways to do it. For example, if you decide 4% gross annual revenues will be enough for us for our annual operating budget, and we'd like 100,000 or something for capital, you've got one more percentage to play with, that additional 1% to take it up to the cap of 5. What Comcast could say would be something like this: all right, it's going to cost, let's say, $250,000. We'll build it for you, and you pay us back over the years with that extra 1%. You'll pay us back the 1% out of your gross annual revenues. That'll go to credit, and maybe we'll give you a lump sum amount of money at the beginning, and then you pay the rest back over time. So there are all kinds of ways to negotiate these things, and Comcast understands that when they dump an old iNet on a town that's, antiquated equipment, and will require lots of money to bring up to speed, they understand that towns, cable boards can't always do that, and they're going to need help doing it. So a couple things. One, Comcast will be able to tell us how much it will cost. They can cost it out for us if we want 2, 3, or 4, or even more, and then they'll help us figure out a creative way to fund it. These things can be done. So 200,000 really is not a lot in the overall scheme of things when you consider you get $80,000 a year. So for a community this size, 200,000 is not a lot of money to look at for the replacement of your current iNet with fiber optic, even if it only goes to 2 stations, 2 locations. So,
I think the perspective, we should kind of look at this as not today, tomorrow, next year. This is a 10-year contract. And who knows how big the population is going to be in 10 years? Who knows what the town's going to want in 10 years? Who's to say that there's going to be the same select board serving the community over the course of that 10 years? So really, we owe it to ourselves and the community to make sure the ways and means are there over the next 10 years that this technology and this funding is going to exist.
yeah.
Regardless of, well, we don't want to do it this year. It's not about this year. This is about 10 years and where technology is going to take us and where we're going to be going in 10 years. And who's going to be servicing, and who's even going to be around, and is there going to be a population explosion? Or maybe there's going to be a population decrease in Groveland, and it's not going to matter anymore. But, you got to future-proof yourself with these contracts. That's the one key thing you have to consider, is that what we work towards today is what we're going to be dealing with every year till the next set of contracts, if there's another set of contracts, if cable TV exists. So, that's kind of our perspective. We are kind of the custodians of our future here, so.
Yeah.
Bill, I know there's places that Charlie will go and tape a meeting, Chris will do it. They probably do locations within the town that they regularly go into the meetings and tape them and put them on, they can't do it live, but they put them on.
Right.
On a delay. Maybe if we get a list from them, places that they go, or boards that they do that aren't in this room, they regularly tape, maybe we could look at adding that to Exhibit B here and wire up some of those for a live broadcast.
sure, for live origination, yep.
Yeah, but, to tell you the truth, I wouldn't suggest before I would cable any other government building because of the cost. I think our priority is here at Town Hall. Second priority would be the fire station, because that was the backup for the Board of Selectmen last night, because this room was booked. Third would be, either at the Bagnell School for town meeting, but that's once a year. Do you want to spend that kind of money to only be able to use something once a year? And then fourth,
You got the Festival of Lights, you've got the concert, you've
Right.
got
Right.
there's a lot
Yeah.
going on in the back.
Plus, like I said, this is 10 years. Our needs may change over the course of 10 years. So if you only have 2 venues, you've
Right.
sold yourself too short. You bet you know it's to spite your face, and you can't
right,
do
but
that.
then, as far as the high school is concerned, it would be up to the Board of Selectmen to decide whether they would want to negotiate with the other 2 towns to have that go through to the high school, because we would definitely need permission from the town of West Newbury, because the high school, or I should say, the proposed new school will be built completely in the town of West Newbury. So that would take an agreement. It would, again, we are an advisory board, so as such, it would be up to the Board of Selectmen whether or not they would want to pursue that, or whether or not we would want to pursue that and then go to the selectmen, suggest it, and then have them say yes or no. Could you tell me, Bill, in all the other communities you deal with, are any of them dealing with regional high schools?
Quite a few.
Do any of them have public access television stations based out of that regional high
Yes.
school?
Typically, they do.
And just out of curiosity, eventually, could you provide us a list of those at your leisure?
Sure.
You know,
I mean, I
just
can think of a couple right now. Lincoln does.
Lincoln?
Where else have I? Regional high schools.
Concord Carlisle?
they
I
may-
think Hamilton is.
Hamilton, Wenham,
Yeah,
yeah.
Hamilton, Wenham probably
They added
is.
that after.
Some down the South Shore, there's King Philip, there's like a King Philip Regional High School down in, around
Triton?
Rehoboth, somewhere
Triton
down there.
might.
Triton.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that falls into
do they
Cape Media.
operate?
I think they may have something, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's worth looking into.
I'll see if I can come up with some others for you too, Tracy.
Just because rather than reinvent the wheel, it's like, you like to see what kind of agreement that the communities working together, pretty much like our regional agreement with the 3 communities to run the high school.
Yeah.
We would have to have an agreement between at least us and West Newbury, or whether or not Merrimack would want to be involved. But since you pointed out we are an advisory board, I think, I don't know if it would behoove us to approach the selectmen to see if they want to pursue that, since they are our governing authority.
Well, it certainly would. I mean, and sooner rather than later.
Because
It's- There may be technical problems that sometimes, regional high schools are sometimes problematic. For example, is it the same cable company there? I think it is. I think Comcast is in West
I
Newbury.
believe they are.
So that's one less problem. But the other problem is then where is the line going to connect? And does Comcast, wherever you'd have to go in Groveland to get the plant to the new regional high school in West Newbury,
113.
where's it going to go? And is there plant out there now? Because if there isn't, you're talking about lots and lots of money to get it out to that section of town.
Well, again, if we're talking about running the fiber optic, you're talking a lot of money. If we're looking to have that, if that's only cable now, if it has to be upgraded to fiber optic.
Yep.
But at the same point, if it's something that the community wants, we ought to explore it now, since they're talking about a new high school, rather than wait until a high school is built and then say, oh geez, we would have liked to have done this.
It's a lot cheaper to lay that fiber when they're running all the other utilities up the driveway, so.
So I'll give you
What
my,
do we do with West Newbury? West Newbury has Verizon right now,
They have both.
They have
Yeah.
both.
so they're running both.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
They have both. They have both, Boxford has both, Georgetown has both. Unfortunately, you know.
But Merrimack only has Comcast?
Correct.
Merrimack
And we
has
only have
Comcast.
Comcast,
Right,
so.
yeah, they won't go into Merrimack, they won't go
Well, I'm
into
just
Groveland.
citing it for just the regional school with the contracts regarding that, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's, like, Boxford having it's a different issue than, say, West Newbury having it. And then Verizon saying, or Comcast saying, well, you know, Verizon's not giving any money towards West Newbury, why should we? So therefore, we're not gonna give it. Now you have one player out of the game between the three towns that share it. So you have three Comcast contracts on the table. They could cite competitive disadvantage, and then, you know, you could wind up in a little pickle like that. But I just say we see what happens. I say we go for it.
I was going to conclude by giving you a kind of a proposed timeline. One of the things you can do, and I think that we've come up with a couple things that this might be appropriate for, is you can always send a letter from the cable board or from the selectmen saying, in anticipation of our renewal, can you please answer the following questions? How many subscribers do we have? How much would it cost to replace the coax lines to our 4 local origination sites in Exhibit B with fiber optic? Or how much would it cost to run it to each individual site, to replace the coax from Town Hall, from the 2 schools, from the police station? Get them to cost that out now, because that'll be an important thing to know before we start negotiating. I mean, if the answer is 3 million, you know, we're gonna have to come up with a Plan B. We're not gonna get it. But if, as I suspect, some of them anyway are gonna be reasonable and in the neighborhood and negotiable, you know, like 100,000, 150, 200,000, those numbers are doable. Those numbers are doable. That ahead of time, and to kind of factor some of those into your business plan. So there's no reason in the world why you can't write them a letter and ask for information. You can do that. They'll answer it. So, first thing. Second thing, I've got a timeline here with 4 things on it. I'll follow this up with an email to Tracy if you want. But I'm just roughly suggesting, figure out if you want a survey and get it into near final shape by about June 15. Couple months, April, May, June. How often do you meet?
We're meeting monthly now.
Monthly? All right, so that's doable. Yeah, you might have a,
But we will meet more often.
you'll meet
if
more
we
often if you need to.
need to.
Business plan by August 15, couple more months. Public hearing by September 15. And start negotiations by October 15. All doable.
Yep.
All doable. And the other thing, I'm your servant. You can ask me questions on email. You can invite me to your meetings. I don't need to come to all your meetings. It might be a good idea, you know, to have me come to look at your survey and business plan, you know, some of those landmark that we just talked about on some of those dates, come and see how you're doing and check out and make sure you're on target and so on, help you that way. I can do that if you want, happy to. The one thing to remember is that you cannot, remember the open meeting law, you cannot deliberate by email. You should never, ever have any emails going to the entire committee except for one thing, the date of the next meeting. That's it. Don't ever, if, you know, it's so easy to say, oh, let's change sections 5.6 to B from 50,000 to 75, and people chime in, yeah, I think so, yeah, or, you know, somebody hits reply all by accident, and that's a violation of the open meeting law. You just can't do it. So what you can do is, single individuals can send emails to a single member, presumably the chair. So, for example, I can send you a draft license and say, please circulate this, and we'll discuss it at the next meeting, okay? I'm not going to copy the whole committee. I'll send it to you or whoever you want me to. Or we can say, you could send an email to me saying, we've decided $200,000 ought to do it for the new INET or something like that. Or somebody could say, you know, if someone is tasked to go to Comcast and find out how much that costs, like Chris or Charlie or somebody or Tracy, you could send an email to the chair saying Comcast says it would cost $200,000. Just don't send it to the whole committee. So you can do one-on-one, just one way, going up to the chair, but no comments, no reply all, no group discussions, none of that. Violation of the open meeting law.
Okay. Can we, as part of this, could we name a subcommittee of like 2 people to develop the survey?
Sure.
To present to our next board meeting?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
It's a good way to go. And maybe another subcommittee for the business plan, you know, a subcommittee to work up questions for Comcast. However you want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's basically my initial kickoff pitch for you.
We appreciate your help. Look forward to working with you.
I do
So,
too, I do too.
as far as when we do the public hearing, the ascertainment hearing, we'll want to do it on your schedule. Should you be here for the ascertainment hearing?
Well, I usually say yes. And the reason that I don't have to be here for any of these, but the reason I say yes for the public hearing is because I think it's helpful to have a lawyer there to tell folks in the audience, no, you can't get the Golf Channel, sorry, or no, we can't do anything about rates, or no, the selectmen can't negotiate this, the FCC says no, or it's not part of the Cable Act, you know, to make sure that the questions we know are coming,
The camera on Bill, please.
make sure that
Speaking.
make sure that the questions we know are coming are answered. If it's a legal question, they get a legal answer, is what I want to say. So I also think it's also helpful to have Comcast come, and they usually do. And a lot of times, Comcast and I can talk about legal issues as well at the meeting. So I usually recommend that you do invite me to come to your public hearing. I can help you get it organized. I can help, you know, maybe half an hour beforehand, you'll have a script on who's going to say what and who you're going to want to invite. Think about reaching out to the public. I call it getting out the vote, all right? Getting a lot of interest generated for coming to the public hearing. If you have something positive to say about access, what you like, if you have something positive to say about what you want, or if you have something negative to say about Comcast or the contract, whatever it is, people should be encouraged to come out and tell you, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, relevant, or irrelevant, all right? If you get a room full of people saying we want the Tiddlywinks channel, you know, Comcast might decide to give that to you. There are a lot of benefits to having people come out to the public hearing and saying whatever it is that's on their mind, whether it's good or bad. It's all good benefit. There is nothing bad from having a room full of people here and Comcast seeing it. On the other hand, if nobody shows up, that's the first thing Comcast is going to say when you sit down to negotiation. Actually, the second thing. The first will be about their survey, and the second will be, we noticed nobody came to your hearing, we guess nobody in town cares, so we're going to offer you the same amount of money, all right? So it is an indicator of the scope and extent of public support for access, how well you can pack your room for the public hearing. So that's something to think about. If you have a subcommittee planning for the public hearing, I'll be happy to come back and give you some, you know, a pep talk and some ideas if you want, or I can do it by email if you'd like. But that's a really important thing to think about. It's a very, very useful and helpful tool for ascertainment. And it goes right to the two things that this committee and a license renewal is about: future needs and whether Comcast is in compliance with their license.
I want to thank you for coming. You certainly
Most
gave
welcome.
us
Yeah, very helpful.
valuable information.
Thank you.
And that's great. A lot of helpful information, Bill. Thank you.
You're most welcome. I was very delighted when Tracy gave me a call and asked me to, to work with you. Of course, I know a lot of you for many, many years. Love coming up here. It's fun coming up. I just enjoy it. So very much look forward to working with all of you, and we'll negotiate and get a good license
Great.
that will serve the town well with your help. Good. All right, so.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Really
All
appreciate
right.
you coming.
Yep,
So
so-
in scheduling our ascertainment, same thing, you said evenings are best for you, correct?
Usually, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I go to meetings at all time during the day. But I sometimes have court appearances or depositions or something during the day, so it's
Right.
easier for me to find open slots in the evening usually than days.
Any particular day of the week better for you? I know it's long
Mondays and
range, but
Mondays and Tuesdays tend to be the most frequently used, so
Monday and Tuesday.
Wednesday and Thursday, I have more openings, but it depends entirely on when it is.
Okay.
Depends entirely on when it is.
Well, again, since you're our representative, I want to make sure that, we contact you probably we will want to schedule with you like 2 months in advance to,
That's great, if you can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can, if you want to, I mean, that'll
Yes.
pretty much guarantee that I'll have an open night, probably, unless it's my birthday or something.
We
Which it
can
won't be,
celebrate with
because my
you.
birthday's tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday.
happy birthday.
So, nice to see you all. Nice to
Thank
see
you.
You as well.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Look forward to working with you.
Thanks,
Always.
Bill.
Thank you.
Great.
Lots of food for thought.
Yeah, that was very informative.
All right. So, getting back to old business, with the updates, Chris has proposed,
Can I ask a quick question before we
Yes.
go on to this proposal?
yes,
So we approved the previous one for the server and everything back in January?
Maybe even earlier.
Cool, but we voted at the January 29th meeting?
Right.
right.
So HB isn't gonna be able to install this equipment until after May?
Well, we wanted to delay, we don't want him to do it the week of candidates.
Right,
night.
right, but what I'm saying is like, we approved this back at the end of January and they're not able to do this work till now?
They
Like,
had
actually
a,
past now? Like,
they had a long backlog. We also, they had, we were gonna do just the carousels, and then we decided to do the
Right.
server, and then they had to roll back the software, because Tightrope did all that.
Yep.
Yeah,
I remember all that.
I'm
I'm just
working with
curious
what
why
they
they're
gave
taking
us.
so long to
Yeah.
get something that shouldn't take this long to do. I'm kind of annoyed by that, to be honest, but.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to put this off until they finish the first project before we give them any more work?
I haven't even gotten into this one yet, but I actually, with this, I want to get a second opinion.
Okay,
I think that's probably a wiser choice. I'd like to have a second set of eyes on that.
okay,
That's just my opinion.
okay.
I wouldn't mind bringing Michael, is that your guy in?
I would, yeah, as a matter of fact, I may even give him a call tomorrow morning if that's all right with you
That's
guys.
fine, I welcome that.
Just who should I talk to, because he's going to have to get paid? I mean, everyone gets paid for showing up to look at something,
Right.
correct?
Can you,
I just need to know who I'm supposed to talk to.
it would be Denise,
Yep, okay.
so then I would entertain a motion by somebody on the board to have an independent consultant review the most recent list of upgrades to see if it's appropriate and,
Review the equipment.
huh?
And review the existing
And
equipment.
review the existing equipment and authorize payment out of our cable funds. So having said that, if we have a motion for that, that means I should contact Denise to make sure that that can happen, correct, since she's the
Yeah, we should
finance
make sure we
director.
can do this, but
Right.
So
Do it
then,
subject to
then
Denise's.
let me make this suggestion.
Yeah, I like
We-
that.
I would suggest that rather than wait a full month, let me touch base with Denise on this first to make sure.
Why
And,
don't we make the motion
Okay.
and approve it, subject to
To.
approval by,
Sure.
okay,
Denise.
the finance
That way it'll
director.
be in place
Okay.
and it can get done.
Yep.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion?
I move to have the existing equipment and the proposals, I guess, reviewed by a second
Independent,
independent party, and then payment to said independent party pending approval by Denise. Am I rounding on my bases here? I'm trying to.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep. So I would need, just so I can give Denise the information, the cost, what the consultant would be charged per hour, and the estimated time to make that determination to report back to the board.
okay.
All right, so You made the motion.
Second?
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay. All right. As far as the survey, do people mind if we have a subcommittee of maybe two of us? I would volunteer to be part of that subcommittee, whether or not anyone else wants to be part of that, to,
I've already kind of
yeah,
done one in
okay.
the past, so.
Then would the board entertain Rob and I doing a subcommittee to,
Yes,
do
I'll put
the
that in the form
survey.
of a motion, that subcommittee, Rob and Tracy, and to come up with a survey. I think the survey is a good idea. Bill gave us some samples here, and I think we had one ourselves. I can't find it, though.
I like the idea of doing both SurveyMonkey and a written one.
Yep.
Survey, you know, the SurveyMonkey may get us a lot of hits since so many people are online, but I do think doing a more in-depth one that would be available here at Town Hall, and if the board doesn't mind, I'll speak with the library to see if they would allow us to have surveys and a drop-off box at the library, I think would be the other really good place in Council on Aging.
Yeah, any,
Put a box right out here.
My 2 cents real quick, because I've already done this.
Okay.
Doing physical copies and then actually having SurveyMonkey was very good. I found using SurveyMonkey services, while there was a cost, once you went beyond the initial free 8 questions, it was very helpful because they did all your analytics and all your statistics and everything. And you could print out as a really basic report, or you get a full 40-page plus report on the results. Also, having sat outside town meetings, town days, and other town events in the town I work in with surveys, what I gave out in surveys versus what I got back, and then comparing that to what I got for hits from the SurveyMonkey survey, it was like 2 different worlds. I got way more information from the online survey than just someone walking in somebody, oh, yeah, I'll fill that out, and you see them at the end of the, like, hey, can I get that, sir? Well, hey, can you drop it off at Town Hall? I actually saw all of them. I was looking at them as I was cleaning up my office today. I found all, like, let's see, maybe 45 physical handwritten ones out of the, I forget how many. I think I had over 1,000 printed up. I was just doing them 1,000 at a time.
Okay.
And so I didn't even use the first 1,000. And I kind of felt like, wow, that's kind of a waste. And it's only black and white copies, but still, it's a waste of paper and whatnot. Recycling will love me, but that's about it.
Okay, maybe we do the simple, what would it cost for SurveyMonkey to do a bigger survey than the 8 to 10 free?
That's a good question. It's a monthly, because you can have it go for as many months as you want. I did it for, I want to say I kept it up for almost 6 months, just because I really wanted to cast a wide net. I really didn't even need it up the full 6 months. I think the initial groups of people that responded were within the first 90 days. After the first 10 days, it was slow, but after that, it just picked right up. Someone was like, oh, yeah, do the survey.
Okay, then I would make a suggestion that the board would appoint us to develop the survey. We'll report back to a future board meeting with the cost of what SurveyMonkey would cost for the,
Yep.
Just a question on that, maybe Rob could answer it.
Hopefully.
When you do, I have the utmost confidence that you'll handle it. When you do the SurveyMonkey, is it possible to get out-of-town responses on the SurveyMonkey? Or is there a way that they can just filter it for here?
Well, I mean, anyone that submits their opinion can submit their opinion if it's on the internet. You know, it's like doing any other
Yeah,
survey.
that's what I
But
thought.
I always made it in my survey, I made like, you know, if you'd like to disclose at least where you live, like to at least see if I was getting people in the town that I worked in versus people from outside of the town. But I did also incorporate, I did let it go outside of town because I wasn't just looking at people that lived in town, but also people that worked in town that might not live in town that use our services. So I like, you know, say you have, a hypothetical, say you have like a librarian that lives in 3 towns away from your community, but she still uses the cable access studio for either watching it while she's at work or using it to host events, or presenting programming from like guest speakers and whatnot, it was important to get that person's input. Because while they might not be paying into the system, they are an end user of that system, so.
good
But
point.
you can filter it that way. I mean, there are filters in, logistics you can apply to these surveys to just have just Groveland people. And for the most part, you're probably just going to get people from Groveland. I mean, that's what I got. I got very few people from out of town, but they were people that worked in the different branches of the municipality that responded, so. And they had no problem writing that they were from such and such and represented, the schools or this or that, so.
Okay.
I knew you could handle
Oh,
it.
thanks. I
Okay,
appreciate the confidence.
Having said that, he made the motion. Did I have a second?
I say, oh, wait, I mean,
You can't second. it.
sorry.
He made the motion.
Second,
Okay, Elizabeth is the second.
that'll be my turn.
Any other discussion about the subcommittee? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Is there any other old business that we didn't address? Anyone? Rob?
No, I don't have any old business.
Elizabeth?
Not for me.
Carl? Ed?
I'm all set.
Okay, new business. One of the things I want to propose us discussing at our next meeting, I started looking at, we have our 2 channels, 9, which is our government channel, 22 is our public access. I want to propose for discussion at our next meeting that we have on the bulletin board messages. I want to propose a policy that messages relating to government will only be on the Channel 9 government channel. Message is for public groups like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Brownies, churches, and like that, would only be on the Channel 22 to differentiate the two, so.
I think we do that now.
No, because I see a mixture of the two.
I think it's a good idea to do the
So,
mixture, because you got people that.
No, I just think, well, and again, this will be up for discussion at our next meeting rather than going and, I want people to have time to think about it. And we should have it listed as an agenda item to discuss. The other thing I will ask Chris at the next meeting, we have music on one channel, we do not have music on the other channel. I just would like that reviewed to see why we don't have music on the bulletin board on both channels. If you can check that out and report back to us. And is there any other business that people would like to propose for our next meeting? Anything that I'm leaving out?
I think we got a lot to
Want to
digest.
schedule another meeting?
You?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will have to consult people, I don't have my work schedule, I generally get it like a week, sometimes 2 in advance. As far as meeting nights, do people have a preference,
I don't
whether,
like Tuesday.
excuse me?
I don't like Tuesday.
Yeah, I generally don't, it's based on Bill's
I
schedule.
know, that's fine. I'll,
So-
whatever night,
I usually
Majority is
prefer
fine.
either the off selectmen's Monday nights when possible, or Thursday nights, if that's
Thursday's
okay.
good for me.
Thursday's good for you?
Thursday's probably better.
Yeah,
Thursdays.
Mondays
Kyle,
can
do
be
you have a
tough.
preference?
No, I don't have a preference.
Ed, do you have a preference as to Thursdays generally?
It varies.
It varies, okay, then I'll be in touch with committee members to schedule our next meeting and probably try for Thursdays. And be reporting back to the Board of Selectmen on our progress.
do you want to, maybe it's for the next meeting,
Yeah.
consider doing what we tried earlier, having just say to the public that we're here in town hall if there's any questions, or do you want to, maybe put that on the agenda item if we want to consider doing that again?
Yeah, well, what I will do.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we go.
See, it's kind of late,
And-
that's
and
why.
all our future meetings, I will list a public comment. And again, for anyone in Groveland who is watching this at home, you know, our contract with Comcast expires in November. As part of that process, we want input from people, good, bad, or indifferent. At all of our future meetings, we will have a public comment period for people to address the board with issues they might have. I would also suggest that if people are unable to attend, we do have a mailbox here at Town Hall, marked Cable Board. People are welcome to put written comments in that, and if they leave a name and a phone number, we will return that call, or we will reply to them.
How about something along the same lines and posting it on the access
On
channel?
on the message board, yes, yeah, we can do that.
Post what?
Public comment?
That,
Oh, public comment.
if you can put like on a page that future cable board meetings will have a public comment component, and people will be invited to speak
Pro and
regarding-
con about the cable TV.
Right.
I
Pro-
did think of something, not to interrupt your train of thought, but I'll let you finish.
No,
with it.
go ahead.
So just going back to this proposal here, I would like to just get approval to replace the wireless access station that died.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
thought they had been given the go-ahead to do that, and I think they built it into the proposal, and there was some kind of miscommunication there. So they were waiting on that, and I thought they went ahead and did it. But I would like to get approval on just that one item, if that's all right. It's the Shure 4-channel access point transceiver. It replaces the one that died. It's $2,163.
Third light item down.
And that will enable us to get all of the mics that currently were linked to that station to be back and functional.
What do you think, Rob? Since you're-
You know, if it's dead in the water and we really need it, I say we go
Okay.
for it. I mean, I don't know. That's something we need. And I'm
Okay.
not gonna
Okay.
stall.
I
just
mean,
kinda
if we're
like the
planning
overall
on
proposal.
using those extra mics, you'd ask me, you know, what the status was with that. They can't work unless we have that
Yeah.
other
Again, I
access
look
point.
at you and Chris
Yep.
as our technology
Yep.
people, so I defer to you. So that's $2,163.
Yep.
Plus it'll be something for installation.
Yep, like they always do.
Okay, can I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the purchase of line item 3, the One Shore MXWA PT4 4-channel access point transceiver to replace the one that died for the tune of $2,163 plus installation fee. So should we say like a number not to exceed $5,000? Just so we know that it'll cover installation.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be that
I'll
much
try
at
and
all.
have them build that into when they put in the servers. They could probably put that in for.
Or at least even just have it as a separate standalone. Don't build it into anything, just have it separate, so we know that that's gonna be on the table as that.
Yeah.
So if we go back in time, like, hey, you guys didn't do, you know, the installation of that transceiver right, and you're like, oh, well, it was part of this bill. Like, no, it's not, it's right here. Please
Right.
fix it, so,
Okay, so,
accountability.
all right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second?
Yep. we'll stick with-
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we'll get that done. Make sure that's done for candidates night, which, what date did we say that is? That was 23rd, wasn't it?
23rd or 24th?
25th, I thought,
25th?
but it's whatever a Wednesday, I believe.
I gotta,
Let's watch the cable station.
Monday,
Maybe,
Tuesday, Wednesday. If Monday was the 22nd, Wednesday would be the 25th, so.
I just gotta look that up.
Wednesday's the 24th.
Wednesday's 24th.
Oh,
yep.
okay, I misspoke, sorry.
That's all right. Dates are tough. There's a lot out there. There is, we've got a lot on our plate between September
Right,
15th.
so Groveland Candidates Night for town election will be on Wednesday, April 24th, 7 o'clock, here in Town Hall, middle meeting room. So anyone interested in hearing the various candidates running for the different positions, please be here or watch at home on television. Okay. Okay, any other business to come before us?
I just brought some old equipment in. There's a power amplifier and then actually a K-LAN meter for the modulators that I had at my old studio, so. We don't have modulators, so.
Okay, good. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn
Motion to
at
adjourn.
Second.
8:43 PM.
Aye.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks,
Charlie.
Charlie. Boy, you know your stuff.